My father had been approached by a friend out of Hollywood. I believe the gentleman's name was Edward Lewis.
And it seemed like one of the things that should be done and had to be done was that he got more publicity, because when I go to the market, there were a lot of people that went right past the pickets. And so I felt that they were doing that because of ignorance. They just didn't understand what the problem was. So we thought, well, how could we help? And the first thing we had to do was to meet him.
My essential recollection is Millie talking about the principles of the kibbutz to Cesar and how they could be applied to the union and how important it would be if he had a place where he could get his people together and help educate them and give them practical advice and so forth. And it was left that if something comes up where he needed some funds, we would be happy to make a contribution. That's really where it was.
Well, there's this place up in the mountains. It's very nice, and it's up in towards Tehachapi, and the county's going to put it out for auction. They don't need any more.
A man by the name of Leroy Chatfield, who was very close to Cesar, and he's the one that called me and said Cesar had something that he wanted to talk about.
Called Ed Lewis, and he said, yeah, I think we might be able to help. So they talked about it. I said, but we'd have to see this place. Said, have you seen it? He said, no, they won't show it to us.
Told me then that they had found this place, that it seemed perfect for them, but that he couldn't go see it, nor could any of them. Cesar said, if we tip off that we're the ones that are going to be bidding on this property, we're not going to get it.
They'll show it to me because I'm from out of town. But there should be one of you guys to go see it with me. And Cesar said, Richard, he's going to be your chauffeur. Glasses, and I got a little cap and chauffeur's cap and all that. I'm Mr. Lewis's chauffeur. Yeah.
It was a Chevy. The Chevy was the vehicle of choice in Delano, as I remember at that time. And it wouldn't have been a new Chevy, it would have been a used Chevy.
Well, they were showing Mr. Lewis everything there was. I was a builder, so I was taking note of everything, either mentally or when I had a chance, I would write it down, you know, this and this and this and that. Cesar said, there's a lot of room, there's all kinds of offices and this and that could be turned into, I was excited about everything.
Kitchens, dormitories, even had, as I recall, its own fire department. It was a little city. And now came the moment of truth when a decision had to be made by them as to how much of a financial burden they were willing to accept. Richard was there. I remember Dolores Huerta was there. And I was seated in the middle of this table and Cesar next to me. And Cesar passed around a piece of paper for everybody and he says, everybody please write down the top price that we are willing to acquire this property. And everybody thought and wrote, folded up their piece of paper and gave them to him. And he had them in front of them, and he opened one at a time, and he looked at all of them, never announced what they were, put them in a pile, and said to me, I want you to bid whatever it takes to get the property. So he asked everybody for their opinion, but he really didn't give a damn what it was. He knew that this was what was right for the union. When the auction came, I went alone with only one counsel, come back with the property.
Ed got it for $131,000. There was a big story in the front page of the Bakersfield Californian, and Ed Lewis's chauffeur was Cesar Chavez's brother. They knew that we had put one on him, you know. And then Ed Lewis announced that he was going to pass it on to us. And
when they found out that it was going to be turned over to the movement, the county refused to accept the monthly installments that he had to make on the property. They refused to take them for a couple of years, and then they began to cash the checks.
And then he said the word is out around the Bakersfield courthouse. Some communist Hollywood Jew movie director had bought this property to give to the Farm Workers Union and referred to Chavez as that black Mexican communist, you know.
Summer of '71, Cesar was moving to La Paz from Delano.
He says, Mother, he used to call me Mother. They gave me a place a beautiful place that you're going to love. He says, it's up in the mountains, and I'm going to open the union headquarters there.
In those days, his library was in his living room, and he was packing the books into boxes. And Helen is sitting on the couch like this with her arms folded on her chest, while Cesar is packing the boxes, looking kind of miffed.
I said, well, what's the name of the town? Where are we going to? He said, to Keene, California. And I said, I am not going, and I will not follow you there. He would tell me, come on, you've got to move up here. I need you, you know, I need your help, and I need your encouragement and all that.
Helen had never failed to go with him on all the times that they moved around, you know, so often during the CSO years and then later with the union. She always would go with him, and he just didn't understand why, you know, she was adamantly refusing to move to La Paz.
I had been there as a child at that sanatorium for a year, and they treated us really bad. They were real bad to us. They used to spank us and everything, and I hated the place. So when he told me that we were going there, I said, I'm not going to follow you.
And for many months, my father tried to convince her that we should move up there, and she refused to. And it got to the point that my dad said, okay, well, I got to go up there. Come and visit me on weekends, or I'll come and visit you in Delano on weekends.
So one day I went there. Leroy Chetfield lived there at the time. I said, where's Cesar? He says, he's not here. And I said, what do you mean he's not here? And he said, don't get excited. He said, let me tell you what happened. He says, it's something very serious.
He says, he took my husband and me to our bedroom, and he told us about this man that was after him. Showed us a picture and everything, and he says, they tell me he likes to put dynamite in cars.
There was a time when he was on the run because somebody was right behind him.
And then I went over to my sisters, and he told me what had happened, that they had gotten word from the FBI that they were going to assassinate him. He says, take care of the kids. I'm going to be gone for a while. I don't know, we're going to be hiding out until things cool down.
Dad, why did you have to run in the house? What's wrong? Oh, Mia, you know, there's some really evil people out there, he says, and I understand that there was a contract on my life. He says, and they're not going to stop me. If they think because they're threatening me that they're going to stop me from what I'm doing, they are very wrong, because I am not afraid.
Then finally one day he said, I am not going to run. I'm not a coward. I have not done anything wrong except fight for workers' rights. I'm going back home, and I don't care if they kill me. If that's God's will, let it be. And so then I said to myself, I said, Helen, you're being very selfish. If he's willing to give his life for what he believes in, something that you vowed to help him with, you know, you should go back. So I did. I moved back a little before Christmas.
Yeah, we moved in '71. There was a lot of family living there. Like I mentioned, there was 30-something kids our age. And you know, their parents, of course, worked there with the union.
Oh, I thought it was just like this huge campsite. We had a ball. We just ran around everywhere, climbed, hiked.
There was singles, there was families, there was people with small children, people with older children. One of the buildings that used to be a hospital when the people were patients there, and when it used to be a tuberculosis center, that was occupied by a lot of folks. And then there was trailers that were brought in there onto the property itself, and a lot of people, particularly the families, lived in trailers, and there was some houses that remained on the property.
When he was in La Paz, you know, he would be up before dawn. Many times he would go up to the hill above his office and meditate as the sun came up. You know, he practiced yoga and be in the office by 7 o'clock. And he would have a full day of meetings. We had trained organizers. We trained people to work in the credit union. We trained people to become cooks, to become attorneys, to become mechanics.
We had our boycott offices, we had our membership offices, we had those workers and those folks that dealt with the contracts and others that dealt with negotiations. Had a Montessori school there for children. Kids weren't just watched like many daycares do, but the idea is that we had an opportunity to help educate kids. We had organic gardens there, and apart from all that, we had the daily work of the movement happening.
For many years, we had priests that actually lived at La Paz. We had built-in services, you know, Mass every Sunday. All of the religious holidays were observed. We had communion classes, confirmation classes. plus weddings, many, many weddings that we had there. Our religious life was really built in, and it wasn't just Catholic because, Chris Hartmeyer, other Protestant ministers were very much a part of it.
Well, it was a community, and that's what Cesar loved. It was part of his stamina and his spiritual strength was just having the elements of people living and working together and worshiping together on Sundays and having community meetings on Fridays.
He thought that by working together and by putting our energies and our talents and our skills in a setting like La Paz, that we could really achieve things that were beyond expectations.
So my dad was, he was always on the road, and so coming back to La Paz, it gave him the ability to re-energize his batteries, but also it gave him a chance to remove himself from the fray and allow him to think about what the next step should be.
Cesar passed away. Helen, his wife, kind of posed a question to us that none of us had really thought much about because, one, we just weren't prepared. We were all so surprised when Cesar did pass away. And she really, wanted to make sure that we would never abandon and leave La Paz, leave Cesar there by himself.
Several years ago, Paul Chavez, one of Cesar's sons, and the chairman of the Cesar Chavez Foundation, with the help of other stakeholders in the legacy, felt that there needed to be one national Chavez Center, a place where people will come from all over the country and ideally from all over the world to experience the life, the legacy, the values, the history of Cesar Chavez.
His burial grounds, that it didn't become just an area where we go there to mourn, but more importantly, to remember and recommit.
Once completed, the National Chavez Center will be comprised of 3 principal facilities. One is the Memorial Garden and Visitor Center around the gravesite of Cesar. The second is a retreat center, which will be a place for student groups, labor unions, business groups, political groups, community groups from all across the country to come and retreat in the mountains of La Paz, inspired by the proximity of Cesar and the history that's occurred there over the years. And the third phase will be a museum and a library and a cultural center.
People recognize that La Paz plays an important role, not only in the history of the movement, but really an important role in our society. It's the place that my father worked from for many years. It's the place that he's buried. And so I think that that people understand the significance and the importance of La Paz as a visitor retreat center.
Well, this is a major undertaking. It's going to require the support and the involvement and the resources of people, not just in California, but across the country. People who believe in the importance and are committed to the importance of carrying on the legacy of Cesar Chavez, ensuring that young people, that future generations have a place to go to experience and to celebrate the legacy and the life of Cesar Chavez.